All right, awesome. Let's get started. All right, okay. Let's hope this works. All right, let's go live. Great. So we are going to talk about some recent changes with USCIS and things that have happened. Most recently, some proposals that are happening there. And of course, in the meantime, feel free to add your questions. Okay, so any questions you have, let's just put them in. We are live on multiple platforms, and great. So let's see. All right. Okay. Wonderful. I'm still working out the kinks on this technology because I do law for a reason. I'm not doing technology. So there you go. So all chat, live chat, all messages. Great. So now that we see some individuals that have joined, let's talk about it. Hi, everyone. It's me. All right. Hi. We are on multiple platforms. I don't know if you are seeing us right now on TikTok. You're seeing us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are. Welcome. Let's talk today about some recent changes that are happening at USCIS that may affect you. So let's hope that, let's turn those notifications off because they are very annoying. All right, great. So let's talk about those. Any questions you guys have about your immigration matter, or make it general so people cannot identify you. And let's see how we can answer those once I go over the changes and we give people a little bit more time to join us. Okay, if I'm looking here, it's generally people on Facebook, Insta, and YouTube. If I'm looking down here, guys, it's TikTok. So hi, I see you guys. Hi, you said asylum. You have question about asylum. Tell me more about it. Tell me where you are located right now, what question you have about the asylum. And don't mention the word asylum unless you are already in the United States. So let's talk about it. Remember this, refugee, it's a form of humanitarian relief that you can get if you are still outside the United States. Once you go through the refugee process, okay, then you have to be accepted, you have to be registered as a refugee, and then you are waiting for resettlement services for a spot to be available for you to go to the designated country. There are many countries, according to treaties that are worldwide, that accept refugees. And since we are talking about the most recent changes at USCIS, as of a week and a half ago, actually, the number of refugees that are accepted to US has actually been increased from about 18,000 to 60-something thousand. All right. So that should allow more people to resettle. There is a huge backlog, obviously, because we are coming off a few years of almost zero refugees allowed in. And it will be a backlog until your term will come in. Asylum, on the other hand, which is very similar, and people confuse the two. Okay. Asylum is a form of humanitarian relief, very similar to those applying for refugee status. But you can only apply for asylum once you are physically already located in the United States. You cannot apply for asylum from abroad. Now, you can apply for asylum. Generally speaking, people call it political asylum. It's not always political, but you have to show persecution on the part of the foreign government in order for you to win that case. So hopefully that helped you, Mr. Khan, I think. Okay. If I want to move to USA, what is the process? I am here in Dubai. Well, if you say move to the USA, I am assuming you are talking about living here permanently. Generally speaking, to live in the United States permanently, okay, there are 5 ways. There are more than that, but in 5 general categories, okay? 1, you have to have a close family member petition for you. If that is not an option, then you can apply for the diversity visa, the green card lottery every single year, assuming your country, where you're from, your original country, not where you live right now in Dubai, is listed there as one of the countries from which you can apply for the lottery. Not all countries are every single year, okay? So if you win that, then you can petition for a permanent residency. You come to the United States. 3rd way is through asylum. Like I said, you have to apply for that only from within the United States. 4th way is through investment. It really depends if the United States first has a treaty with your country of origin. Okay, and then if you have the money to invest in a business that will create jobs in the United States. All right, then let's see. All right, and then the 5th option is through employment. Okay, there are multiple categories under employment. Generally speaking, you have to be educated. You have to have an employer willing to sponsor you for a position in the United States. Of course, there are categories for domestic workers. There are other categories for skilled labor, unskilled labor, and so on. And there are also categories for national interest waiver, people who basically qualify for the Nobel Prize, and they're highly sought after in their field. And those, because the United States would want them, they would grant them permanent residency. So those are generally the 5 ways to come to the United States and live in the United States. All right. For some reason, I don't see any comments yet. I don't know if it's my message, my system, or what's going on. I just don't see messages from Instagram. All right, we'll worry about that later, but at least the people on TikTok, I still see them. Okay, so other changes that have occurred at USCIS. USCIS is the agency that handles immigration applications from within the United States. Okay, right now, it used to be that people who needed to remain here for longer periods of time needed to be fingerprinted. They still do, but last year they implemented this thing where everybody has to be fingerprinted almost, including people who are just extending their tourist visas. People who are changing their status from a student visa to another visa, they wanted them fingerprinted. Well, that stopped, okay? Because it was creating such a huge burden for no reason for people that are already leaving anyway. So that's a huge change. It's changing. Now, not only that, for if you need to change your appointment for a fingerprint, it used to be that you had to send the notice in, the appointment notice for your fingerprint. They used to send it to you, and you have to fill it out and send it back to them. Well, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and frankly, if people need to send that paper in last minute, they won't know if it's got rescheduled, if it didn't get rescheduled. They don't know what is going on. And then they are sometimes getting denials because they are perceived as not showing up to their appointments. Well, now USCIS changed that, and now you can actually call the 800 number for USCIS and tell them to change it right then and there. Plus, there is a record that you called. So when you do call, you need to make sure you save all that information, the officer number and everything, so that you have a record that you at least tried. You can't be denied, or at least you can file a denial for not showing up, okay? And I know I mentioned interview, but it's not interview, it's biometrics, fingerprints. So Let's see. Mohammed, if someone wants to go to the US from Palestine, from Gaza, is there any way to go? I just discussed the exact 5 ways that you can come to the United States. I just went over that. Hopefully you were here. Yeah, I think you were when I mentioned it. Can you please tell me what is the timeline in Vermont for an I-130? Absolutely. If you tell me exactly which category of under I-130 you applied for and when did you apply, I'll tell you what the timeline is. I can look that up. So just tell me exactly what's the I-130 that you applied for. Okay, let's see. I'll bring it up while you're telling me all that information. So other changes that have occurred. We also have the International Entrepreneur Rule. That is a process that allowed people to file for parole to come to the United States or remain in the United States if they were already here, because they are creating businesses that have high velocity, meaning they are going to create lots of jobs, because right now it's an issue with the jobs and all that. So they are trying to encourage that. That process came a while ago, okay, and then it was on hold. Then they wanted to terminate the process. Well, it has just reopened. So that is really awesome. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you about Vermont May 1st. I'll tell you exactly, okay? Let's see. So it really depends where you live, where you filed your case, the category of the case. So I'm glad you're here to give me all the information. So let's see. Marriage-based green card, apply on May 1st. And it depends. Did you find, is your spouse a U.S. citizen or is your spouse a permanent resident? If you have a permanent resident filing for you, right now they are processing applications filed in September 2019. So we are talking at least a year and a half. If you're filing based on U.S. citizen filing for a spouse, not a permanent U.S. citizen, great. That's worse, actually. Right now, they are processing applications filed on April 2018. So we are talking 3 years. But let me tell you why that's not necessarily a bad thing for you. Okay, everybody thinks, oh my God, this case is going to take so long. I just want my green card. And why does it take so long? First, we had the pandemic. They were sick as well. Okay. Second, they also had to interview employment-based cases and other types of cases, not just marriage-based green cards. Okay. Third, when you're applying for a green card based on marriage and you have been married less than 2 years and they give you the green card within those 2 years, in 2 years, you have to go again through this process. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that it takes longer than 2 years, because then you get a 10-year green card, then you don't have to go through this again. You just prove your marriage again when you're applying for citizenship. So it's not necessarily bad, okay? So remember, at Vermont, and it's totally different by other locations, okay? Totally different. But in Vermont, U.S. citizens filing for a spouse, right now, the oldest application they are working on is April 2018. Okay? If it's a permanent resident filing for a spouse, it's actually September 2019. This is why sometimes it's not worth waiting for your husband or wife to file for citizenship and become citizenship first. Okay? It is much worse if you do that, okay? Because look, you could have gained another year and 4 months, assuming your husband was not already a U.S. citizen. This is a very common misconception that people have. They actually think, oh, my husband or wife needs to be a U.S. citizen first before they can even petition for me. That's not always the case, and actually sometimes that is a little bit longer, okay? So I hope that addressed your question. Good. All right. So I see a question finally from someone on Instagram. How does TPS work? Well, let me tell you how TPS works. If you are already in the United States, you can apply for TPS, temporary protective status, that allows you to live and work in the United States on a temporary basis. You're welcome. on a temporary basis. What does that mean? Let's say, for example, people from Venezuela. Okay? People from Venezuela have been coming for a few years because of the horrible situation back there, and now they are stuck. They can't go back, or they can't go back because of persecution and other things. Okay, so they can, beginning with last month, they can apply for TPS. That means Venezuela is now listed as one of those protective countries. Okay, it's listed by U.S. government as a country of risk. So now those who are here as of a certain date, they can apply for TPS protection. Let's say TPS from Haiti, for example, they had the earthquake 11 years ago now in 2010. Immediately after that, because there were so many people coming in and they couldn't go back, there were just no conditions for them to go back. USCIS implemented TPS for Haiti. That meant that people who came here before a certain date, who were already in the United States before a certain date without lawful status, that doesn't mean they didn't enter with a visa, it doesn't matter. Now they are able to apply for a work permit so they can support themselves and pay into the social benefits, pay towards Social Security, pay towards unemployment, and so on. Okay, so now those people have to apply every 2 years generally until TPS expires. TPS is not a permanent option, does not lead to permanent residency. There are people from El Salvador. TPS has been extended for 23 years, but now it's ending. It's ending for Haiti as well. So these people need other options or other ways to remain in the United States. For some of them, this is the only country they've known because they have come since they were children. If that is the case, DACA may be also a good option for them as well, because that lasts longer if TPS expires. Okay. So that's how TPS work. Hopefully that explained it. It also protects you from deportation. So if you are from one of those 13 countries that from which we right now, to which we grant TPS status, then now it's time to call the immigration lawyer and figure it out, see if you can still register. For some of these, you can only, initial registration is no longer open. It's only renewals if that's the case. And some of them, because they are expiring, you can no longer apply for TPS. And when it expires, they just extend it automatically. So hopefully that was useful and that helped. All right, good. Let's see, did I miss any questions? I don't have one here. Does it make it easier to get residency when having TPS? No, one has nothing to do with the other. TPS allows you to live in the United States, okay, and work in the United States. That doesn't mean you get to live permanently or obtain residency or a green card in the United States. It also was that when you enter the country, okay, let's say you entered by crossing the border and you got married to a US citizen or you were on TPS and then you asked for advance parole. And if you traveled on advance parole, okay, when you came back in the country, because you came through a port of entry and they inspected and they admitted you, they considered that a lawful entry. And at that point, you could apply for permanent residence through employment, through marriage, through whatever it was, right? Well, that's no longer the case, beginning with about a year and a half ago. All right, so now if you traveled while you were on TPS on advance parole, and you didn't take advantage of that immediately after you traveled, or you didn't take advantage of that before the rule was canceled, now you're out of luck. Now it's no longer an option. Now you cannot use the TPS or the subsequent entry on TPS that you used advance parole to come to the United States as a permanent resident, okay? So you can't file for, your spouse can't file for you, and you cannot get it through a green card. All right, so hopefully that explains how you get residency after having TPS. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, okay? If you came here and you were a child, you didn't accumulate unlawful presence. If you got TPS when you were, it depends on the age. With immigration, timelines and dates are extremely sensitive, and they are very, very critical and important. So if you definitely need to know when you entered, how you entered, who did you enter with, what was the status. You need to evaluate all those things to see which one is the best option for you, okay? So hopefully that was useful. If you guys have any more questions, just put them down there so I can address them. Okay. A few other changes with immigration depend. I get this question: can a person get a work permit if I stay with a B1, B2 visa? Absolutely not. A B1, B2 visa, it's a tourist visa. B1 is tourist for business. B2 is tourist for pleasure. That allows you to do only two things: have business meetings or go to the beach. Be a tourist. Go visit the national parks, go visit New York City, go do whatever. Does not allow you to work. Working while you are in the United States on a tourist visa and working, okay, while you're on that visa, it's a violation of the terms of your visa. Yes, people do it, and the minute they get caught, they get their visa revoked. So you have to decide if that's worth it for you. Don't think that the government doesn't know. Don't think the government is never going to find out because you work for cash. So just be very careful and do not violate the terms of your visa. A B1, B2 allows you to be a tourist. Okay? Okay, let's see. Let's see if I have more questions. All right. All right, let's see here. Great. All right, good. So we don't have any more questions right now, and it's a marvelous thing because I can go. All right. There was one other thing that I wanted to address with immigration. Okay, right now depends on where you filed your application. They are moving slower or faster. You cannot. I get this question a lot. Actually, it's like, well, is it moving faster if I file in California or if I file in Texas? You don't get to shop around. It really depends on where you live, and it depends on your address. It depends on the type of case and who's the field office that is going to handle your case. Okay, you don't get to pick and choose where you are going to file. So knowing all this, good to see you guys. Hopefully this was useful. We'll try again on, I think I'm scheduled for Monday at 3 p.m. So we'll go over this again. Eastern time, of course. So any questions you guys